Hey guys, I was so excited when I found this question from Cactus Man, and what he wrote it was, why are moats so important for Warren Buffett? So if you have been listening to Warren Buffett in the news, or perhaps read an article about him or one of his books, I'm sure that you have seen that he talks a lot about moat. Another way to explain moat is competitive advantage. So what is it really that is making companies strong and gives them an advantage that they can profit from for many years to come? So this is really the question. So the way I chose to approach this was to help you identify a moat for a company. So the first out of three moats that I chose to talk about today is intangible assets. And what is an intangible asset? Well, if we look at this picture here, this is Donald Duck, as everyone can probably see. Now this is an intangible asset for Walt Disney. Perhaps the best way to explain intangible assets is by saying that it's something that you can't touch. Examples could be a strong brand, for instance, or patents. So Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse, that would be a patent. And these are really important things because it's really hard to imitate. Partly, when you talk about patents, that's not something that you can imitate because Disney owns that. Perhaps the best way of looking at intangible assets is Warren Buffett's way of looking at it. And what he's saying is that if you can look at intangible asset and think about if you had a rival company and they had $1 billion that they could put into a marketing campaign, how would that hurt the intangible assets? Now, I'm not really sure, but I think that if you have a rival company to Disney and they put in $1 billion to build a stronger brand and to have like more valuable patents than Disney, I think they will have a hard time. So I'm always using this approach when I'm evaluating a company. If $1 billion doesn't work for you, I mean, it might be too much, but just the whole way of thinking is that are these intangible assets really so strong that it's hard for a competitor to compete on the same parameters? The second out of the three types of moat that I want to talk to you about is low costs. And the example I want to use is Walmart. So for instance, if we compare Walmart to a food market, they have a huge advantage because it's such a big company that they can just buy in larger quantities, and they can buy a lot of different goods. And what I found interesting about Walmart is that they really have no patents, or they might have a few, but they don't have a patents that really explains their competitive advantage. So when I talk about competitive advantage here, again, this is really low costs. So that means that even though that you know what the moat is, you can't copy it. And I really think that's something that's interesting. It's actually legitimate for you to set up a retail store right next to Walmart and try to compete with them. But because you don't have the same volume, I think that you'll probably also see that the moat that Walmart is having is really wide. And that's really something that Warren Buffett is looking for. As a side note here, as you probably mentioned that at the time of recording, it's the 10th of February 2015. Warren Buffett is actually invested in Walmart. I think he has worth for something like $3 billion, something like that. The third out of the three different types of moat is high switching cost. And to give you an example of that, that would be something like Microsoft Office. This is actually not a company that Warren Buffett has invested in. And that's really on purpose. He really likes Microsoft actually, and this is just like a short story. But as you may know, he is really good friends with Bill Gates, so he doesn't want people to believe that he has insider knowledge about the company. So that's why he's not invested in Microsoft Office or the Microsoft Corporation. But I think that Microsoft Office is really a good example of high switching costs. My question is, what is the alternative? Yes, there are a few open source programs out there, but it's really hard to change to these programs. Well, it's not necessarily because they're worse than Microsoft Office, but it probably involves a lot of problems for you. And the reason why is that Microsoft Office has such a big market share that everybody in the world uses them. So if you want to communicate with other people, if you have to work with other people, you usually just find that it's easier to use Microsoft Office programs. So what is really neat for Microsoft is that they don't have to think too much about the pricing, because they know that it's really hard for us to switch. And if they have what Warren Buffett called a pricing power, which you get when it's really hard to switch away from your product, then you also have the chance to really make a profit in the long run for a company. And that's really something that Warren Buffett is looking for. So let's sum up the 3 types of moat that we've been looking at. The first one was intangible assets. That was the one with Disney. Then you had the low cost. That was the one with Walmart. And the third one was high switching costs, using Microsoft as an example. So let me just stress again that if you are looking for stocks and if you want to invest the same way as Warren Buffett, always see if you can find a stock that has a durable competitive advantage, or moat as Warren Buffett is saying. And the reason for that is really simple. You want to invest in stocks that for a very long time can return capital back to you as an investor. And before you can do that in the long run, you need to locate a stock that has a moat. So, Cactus Man, I hope that you enjoyed my answer, and for the rest of you out there, if you have a question for me, or if you want just to leave feedback or tell me what you like, what you didn't like, you can tweet to me, or you can also contact me through asktheinvestors.com, and in there you can both send me an email with your question or feedback, or you can actually also record your question. But guys, I really want to stay in touch with you, so don't hesitate to contact me. It's been a blast, and I'll see you in the next video.